Hi, not tactical here. I've gotten some feedback on my original video series about the herringbone interwoven Turks heads. I even have a couple subscribers. Thank you for that. I wasn't expecting it at all. The first set of videos was very basic, and the original intent was for them to be as a reference for a friend of mine whom I had already instructed personally. In this update, I want to cover some of the concepts behind these knots and how they are constructed. I'll cover some of the areas where people tend to get stuck and how to develop a feel for these knots. What I'll cover today is what's known as square Turks heads. That means there's a difference of 1 between the bites and the parts, or leads. I'll cover knots with an even number of bites today, beginning with a 2-bite knot, expanding to a 4-bite knot, and expanding that to a 6-bite knot. And what we'll end up with is a 6-bite, 5-part Turks head that we're going to interweave into a herringbone pattern. Knots with an odd number of bites are similar, but I feel that even numbered knots are easier for the beginner to learn. So let's get started. I'm using 2 colors here to illustrate the interweaving process, since it can be difficult to follow if I'm only using one color. Scarlet and gold are 2 colors that are very near and dear to my heart, so that's what I'll be using today. As far as learning the knot goes, Ernie Laudisor was quoted in Bruce Grant's Encyclopedia of Leather and Rawhide Braiding as saying something to the effect of, "It's better to learn the flow of the knot than to memorize the individual steps, like over 1, under 1. And I agree with him 100%. If you understand the construction of the knot you're tying, you'll never get lost in it. And that's one of the concepts I'm going to attempt to teach today. So, starting off with my 3/4 inch PVC mandrel here. You're going to start the knot by going around your mandrel once, crossing over, coming back around along your standing end, crossing over again. So the way I remember that to start an even bite knot is kind of over, over, over. So what that means is over, crossing over, crossing over. Okay? Then coming back into the knot, you're going to come underneath, and that forms the second of 2 bites. Hopefully you can see that. There's 2 bites there. So now we have to form the second bite on the left side of the knot, which, as your running end comes back around, it crosses over and comes under alongside your standing end. Now the definition of a Turk's head knot is that it ends at the same point that it begins. So if you imagine this is one piece of string, there's no end here and there's no end here. These 2 are one. It's a continuous knot. It comes all the way around. So if your knot doesn't end when you're done with any of these Turk's head knots, if it doesn't end with your running end next to your standing end, it's tied wrong. There's something wrong in the knot. You'll have to follow it back through and figure out where. So we now have a 2-bite knot. 2 bites, 3 parts. Okay, we have 1, 2, 3 parts, and you can see there's 2 bites there and 2 bites there. Hopefully you can see that. So we're going to expand this to a 4-bite knot. So following the standing end up to form a pair, it comes out of the knot over, and during the expansion pass it goes back into the knot over as well. So you're going over both bites and coming under the next one. So what you have is a bite that exits the knot over and enters the knot over. Okay, this is only for the expansion pass. And whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. So we came back in the knot from the right, going towards the left. We exit the knot on the left with an over. We're going to enter the knot with an over. come underneath, and we exit the knot on the right side again. Okay, this is not forming a pair. This is not a complete Turk's head. That's because the running end doesn't come alongside the standing end. It may look like it, but there's a difference here. Where this one comes over, the running end comes over coming into the knot. The standing end comes into the knot under. So we have to complete another pass in order for this to be a completed Turk's head knot. You can also see that it only has 3 bites. 1, 2, 3. And since we're tying an even numbered bite Turk's head knot, we know that it's not done. So we're continuing our over one under one pattern, which is what the base knot is for an interwoven Turk's head. We exit the knot over, and what we have here, see, this is the knot the bite that we created before, the over. And what that did was it made an under. So now, this is the second half of the expansion pass. We exited the knot over, and we come under. What that has done is it's tied these bites together. So you have exiting over, entering under, exiting over, entering under, exiting over, entering under, for 4 bites all the way around the knot. Now this pair right here, we're splitting long ways because we're still forming the base knot. And I'll do a little more explanation when we get to the interweave about splitting pairs. So, all you have to do is make the pattern over one, under one. So if you just look at the knot, you can see exactly where your running end needs to go to form that pattern. Okay, so exiting the knot over, this is the final step in the second half of the expansion pass. Come under, and it comes up alongside the standing end. So what we have now is a completed 4-bite, 5-part Turk's head. If you look at the end, you can count the bites. 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you count the parts, let me get everything lined up here. You have 2, 4, 5 parts. And that's how you count bites, or parts, or leads as some people call them. I learned them as parts because I learned them as leatherworking and decorative knot tying for leatherwork and rawhide. The way you count those is with everything lined up, all your X's lined up, and your bites centered over your X's as such. If you were to take a knife and cut this knot apart right here in a straight line, you would be able to count the ends of one end of a flattened knot, and you would count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ends. That's how you count the number of parts in a Turk's head. Okay, so now we have a completed 4-bite, 5-part Turk's head that we're going to expand to a 6-bite Turk's head. It'll be a 6-part or 6-bite, 7-part, also a square knot. Continuing, we follow the standing end up, so where it goes over, we go over, where it goes under, we go under, until we exit the knot. So we exited over. This is the first half of an expansion pass. So it exits over, it needs to enter over. So we come back in the knot this way. You can see there's our over, and right there is our under. That's the one we're going to catch on the second pass, or the second half of this pass. Okay, so continuing through the knot with our over one, under one pattern. Exiting the knot on the left side, coming back in to split this pair. I'm going to pause the video for just a second so I can clean up this knot, and because I'm running out of string here.